Imagine landing the biggest client of your career. You walk into the office expecting praise, but your boss looks at you with a coldness that feels a lot more like hostility than pride. This tension, the fear that a subordinate's success might somehow diminish the person in charge, is a recurring theme throughout history. We find a clear example of this dynamic in the biblical account of 1 Samuel chapter 18. The setting is ancient Israel. A shepherd named David has just achieved a massive victory by defeating the Philistine champion, Goliath. The win is so decisive that the entire nation is swept up in celebration. But as the army returns, the celebration hits a nerve. The local women start singing a song with a specific lyric. Saul kills his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. King Saul hears the comparison and is instantly furious. Saul stopped seeing a victorious general and started seeing a rival. The way a leader handles that specific moment, when the person they hired starts to eclipse them, determines whether the entire structure holds together or begins to crack. Look at this scale representing Saul's perspective. He views David's military victories through a zero-sum lens. In Saul's mind, if David's reputation rises, his own authority must be pushed down by the exact same margin. Driven by this paranoia, Saul devises a trap. He offers his daughter Michal to David in marriage, but sets the bride price as a dangerous military mission against the Philistines. He is intentionally sending his top performer into an impossible situation, hoping David dies in battle. This mirrors a documented pattern in modern organizations, threatened managers assigning doomed projects or unachievable quotas to high performers, attempting to tarnish a reputation they can no longer compete with. The plot backfires. David completes the mission, and Michal genuinely falls in love with him. Instead of being eliminated, David becomes even more deeply integrated into the royal house and the hearts of the people. When envy takes over, a leader's logic begins to fail. They end up actively sabotaging the very military successes that keep their own kingdom safe, all to protect a sense of individual standing. However, there is a different response within the same family. Saul's son and heir, Prince Jonathan, watches the exact same victory over Goliath and responds with immediate respect for David's ability. Jonathan takes off his royal robe, his tunic, his sword, his bow, and his belt, and hands them over to David. In the ancient world, this transfer of personal gear represents a profound alliance. By handing over his armor, the prince is stepping out of a competition for dominance. He recognizes that David's strength doesn't diminish his own royal standing, it reinforces the security of the future they both share. Jonathan demonstrates how secure leadership functions. Instead of measuring his own status against David's, he views David's rise as a direct benefit to the team's total strength. While Saul's rivalry drove his best fighter into exile, Jonathan's response turned a potential competitor into a loyal ally who would eventually protect the kingdom's legacy. The historical account shows that Saul's obsession led to his own moral and mental decline. David's reputation continued to grow despite the king's interference, eventually leaving Saul isolated and without authority. As the story shows, attempting to suppress high-level talent is a losing game. Saul's resistance didn't stop David. It only accelerated Saul's own loss of public trust and authority. Applying the logic of these two paths leads to a few clear principles for managing high-level talent today. First, consider the rewards. When a subordinate handles a major crisis, the entire department's stock rises. Secure leaders make sure that victory is acknowledged generously, knowing that a rising star reflects well on the person who put them in that position. Second, look for opportunities to sponsor. Like Jonathan, give the rising stars the access and tools they need to go further. This turns a potential rival into a permanent ally who is invested in your continued success. And finally, keep the ego in check. When outsiders compare you to your team, saying a subordinate did tens of thousands, it isn't a personal insult. When you look at the total area of the chart, those numbers combine into your team's collective capacity. Great leaders do not build traps to contain their best people. They build stages for them to stand on.